LRL. I'm not going to do that.
We just started, so
What's that?
we just
Are we
got
on?
that. Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. All right. So
I
we're
don't know how
live.
much we got, but
Who knows?
who
All right.
knows?
Well, here we go. Welcome to another episode 36 of Lifting, Running, and Living with your favorite coaches, Kelly,
Hello.
Haiti, and JK. That is me. Another episode of LRL After Dark or At Dark. So,
Yeah.
kicking things off, let's do it as we always do. Let's start off with updates. So, Kelly, what is going on in your world these days?
Okay, so I gotta talk about this again. If the people are sick of it, I'm sorry, but I'm not sorry. I'm gonna mention ClearSpace again. We're not sponsored, but we really should be. This is 3 episodes in a row, I think.
Okay.
Well, so you know on iPhones, I don't know about Androids because I don't have one of those, but you get like your screen time every single week. So normally I wouldn't look at it because I know I spend too much time on social media on my phone, but I decided this week to go check out my stats. And it told me that my average time on Instagram is down to 20 minutes a day, and TikTok is 10 minutes a day, which I don't know what it was before, but I can tell you it was much, much higher. So I am very excited about this. And I don't have Threads on my phone, and I don't miss it. So
Okay.
I know.
Yeah, well, snap. If you
Yeah.
can you venture a guess though, what you think that your combined time in generally what it was?
On both of the apps.
Yeah, let's say
Yeah, I can tell
1 to 2
what.
hours. I don't know.
Okay, so on weekdays, I had my app limits in the like Apple feature set at 1 hour for
Yeah.
collective social media. Almost every day, I would exceed that and just ignore it. Because, you know, with
Okay.
Apple, you can just ignore and keep going about your scrolling.
Yeah.
And then on weekends, I would have an hour and a half was my limit because, for obvious reasons, there's more time. And I would hit that too, usually. Depending. I would usually TikTok more on the weekend, to be honest. But
Yeah.
what I've noticed is like, it's kind of, you've talked about this before, about like being out in the wild and just like picking your phone up when you're waiting in line and stuff. And I've
Yes.
noticed it more like if I'm watching a show and there's an ad break, it's too short for me to use one of my opens now because it's like, you know, shortest is 30 seconds, longest is 2 minutes. But like, I'm not wasting an open just to go on for 30 seconds or 2 minutes, and then I want to focus on whatever I'm watching once it comes back on. So I haven't been picking it up. And same with like during the day for work. If I'm going to use an open, it's going to be like more of a dedicated break time. Like I'm going to use my 10 minutes and focus only on the social media for those 10 minutes. So
Yeah.
it's really minimized the multitasking with scrolling and doing something else, which is nice.
Yeah, I like how you describe it as minimizing the multitasking versus from my point of view, it's reducing the number of distractions,
Yeah.
like distracted time, I guess, time away from whatever you're doing. So that for me then begs the question, what have you found yourself putting more time into then?
Oh, well, the obvious answer is I'm working. So,
Well, it wasn't
it's,
obvious to me.
well, I guess I should
So,
say this is not a perfect experiment because I went back to work. I'm in my 4th week now. So,
yeah.
who's to say what my screen time would have been with the full-time job now? Because that just cut down
Yeah.
the time I would just be twiddling my thumbs, you know, versus before. So,
Yeah, a good amount of my curiosity about that comes from, as you kind of referenced, I've talked about on my podcast before when I read this book called How to Break Up with Your Phone. I think that's what it was called. Yeah, How to Break Up with
yeah.
Your Phone. And it helped me increase more awareness about times where I was just unintentionally or mindlessly, that's the word I was looking for, mindlessly just picking up my phone to then scroll. Like one example was I had this habit of almost every time that I finished a Zoom call or pod recording or whatever, as soon as the call was over, I would reach over, reach over and pick up my phone and just scroll
Yeah.
randomly. So I replaced it with, I now have a couple of books that are here. So I replaced that with a couple of books. So just noticing, so you mentioned like ad breaks and different things like that, just noticing the amount of times that you have those mindless pickups and mindless scrolls.
Yeah.
It's kind of, to me, it was really shocking somewhat.
Yeah.
Just to
It's a
realize,
little
like, man, I do that a
depressing.
lot. Now you need therapy about it. So you feel just awful.
Yeah. I've also noticed one time I would pick up my phone a lot was my resting times in my strength workouts. So I would just sit there. I would usually pick up Threads was my go-to because it's like quick to scroll. But then sometimes you get scrolling too long.
Also guilty of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, getting
Yeah.
distracted during my rest periods. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a very good
Yeah.
one.
So now
It'll
I
be-
just sit there.
Yeah, maybe if somebody's got the hookup with ClearSpace, Kelly's a believer. So
I
you know.
pay them now. So
Oh, you went with the paid version.
yeah, you can only use one app with the free version, and I really wanted to block TikTok too. And not
Yeah.
do like the thing where I would download it, delete it, download it, delete it. So
Okay, that's cool. Okay,
yeah.
well, congrats on your progress with that.
Thank you.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
All
that's
right.
exciting. Let's see. My next update, this one, I'm going to skip to my third first. And this is just a company I stumbled upon that I feel like other people will like. If you like coffee and you like cats, you're going to like it. I
Okay.
posted about it on Instagram when I found it because an Instagram ad is what got me. Very targeted, very on brand. It's called Kitty Town Coffee. And as you can imagine, it's coffee. You can order online. And you can do a subscription if you want. You can order one off, whatever. And each bag that you order feeds a homeless cat for a week. So obviously me being the cat feeder in the neighborhood and avid coffee drinker, I was like, I literally have to buy this coffee. And I did, and it's good. So now I have a subscription.
Oh, nice.
But yeah, it's really cool. And I think it's women owned, which is even cooler.
Okay.
But, yeah.
That's a pretty cool concept. So Kitty Town Coffee. Mm-hmm. That's like what was that shoe company? Was it Tom's? Or
Yeah.
are they still a thing? Tom's? I don't totally
haven't
know.
seen them in
Where
a
if
while,
you
but-
every pair that you bought also then bought a pair for someone
Yeah.
else or something like that. I remember that. I like that. Is to your knowledge is there a brick and mortar for that business too? Just out of curiosity.
I know they roast the coffee beans in a brick and mortar. I'm not sure if they have like
Coffee
somewhere you
shops.
can walk in and buy it. Yeah, or a
Uh,
coffee shop. I
yeah.
know they're on they ship at least from the East Coast. I want to say Pennsylvania.
Okay.
So I haven't
cool
looked into it
concept.
too much because obviously it's not close to us. But
I like
yeah.
that. Coffee with a cause.
yeah, like if I'm gonna buy coffee anyway, I might as well help the cats.
Facts. There you go.
Yeah, and
Do you feel like
just
it
comes
does
to
it
my
lead
door.
to you buying more than you normally would?
No, but
Okay.
I mean it is more expensive than just like going to like King Supers or a grocery store and picking up. But I don't know. It's mostly because you have to order a certain amount to get free shipping, and like I'm not gonna order 6 bags at once because I like it fresher than that.
I have, with not being a coffee drinker, I have no concept of how much that is.
It'd be a lot, but then
Okay.
it would just like be sitting wherever you keep it. But so I just order 1 bag and then I have to pay $5 for shipping, which like whatever.
Yeah. It's cool.
Yeah.
Like I said, coffee
Yeah.
for a cause. Gotta like it.
Coffee for a cause, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And then my last update is I just had my first Deload week in the new Strength app. And
Yeah.
I've never really done a dedicated Deload week with intention before. So, and this will kind of go into what we're talking about later.
Yeah.
get some feedback from some of my athletes. But as I was looking at my strength workouts, there was like no weight in it, and it was all body weight, and I was like, ugh, do I even need to do this? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
Some of them were like, I don't know. I still think a little weight could be added, like body weight squats were one of the things. I'm just like, really, what is this doing? Can I hold
You're
like
like
10
just a
pounds or
little
something?
taste. You're like, can I
Yeah.
do something? Put something in my hand.
Yeah, but the other part shifted into like higher reps for the unilateral movements. And the one workout, I had to do like 15 Bulgarians each side and then like 15 little half squat things. Annihilated.
You and Bulgarians do not have like
No,
an
it's not
ongoing
even
love
that.
for each other. High rep
I'm telling you,
Bulgarians.
anything above 10 reps, I'm just like, I'm toast. Doesn't matter, lower body, upper
I am not
body.
here to disagree with you on that. I am not here
Yeah.
to disagree with you on that.
Yeah. Like, we were supposed to do, me, was supposed to do 15 push-ups as part of my workout yesterday, and I was like,
Yeah.
literally, I can't.
You're like, no, sir.
I'm too weak for this.
Okay. That could open up
but
a
yeah.
whole nother. Okay.
It was just kind of funny, because I was like,
So what
is this even going to do anything? And
what
then it
do
did.
you do in that? What do you do in that scenario where something calls for more push-ups than you can currently do unbroken?
It
How'd you
depends.
handle that? Okay.
Well, so the push-ups yesterday were incline, so they were on a bench. So it's a little easier than strict
Yeah.
push-ups.
Yeah.
Yesterday I was short for time, so I just dropped to my knees once I couldn't do from my feet. I'm trying to get better about defaulting to that and versus just like taking a little break and then going back on my
Yeah.
feet.
Yeah.
You
Do as
know?
many as you can, and then have you done the incline push-ups where you have the barbell racked for
No,
the
but that
incline?
sounds so much easier
Okay, so
because you can change the incline.
yes, that is absolutely my favorite way, and that's how I will program it typically for my clients, and then for the in-person class that I have, if I have push-ups, and then I have somebody who's still working on developing doing those push-ups. And I got to give credit to Brian Borstein, who co-owns Paragon Training Methods. So I picked this tip up. I had seen it a few times before, so it's not like that's the first time. However, he was one of the first that I came across who explained the progression really well in it. And it just made perfect sense because you would start higher, or you would start, basically say if
So
somebody
it's easier.
so you start higher with the barbell racked higher, so
Yeah.
that it's basically, let's say, more of an incline. And then as that person builds up more strength, they can bring the bar lower and lower and lower to the point where they're now seeing that progress, as opposed to doing like just the bench all the time, because the bench is not going to change height unless you're using some sort of platform. I guess if you had those platforms where you can change they're like those step aerobic type platforms,
Yeah, yeah.
that sort of thing. So
Yeah.
just wanted to insert that in there for anybody who may be
good
listening
idea.
and is doing that. I'm a full supporter of doing the ones where you rack the barbell, or again, if you have like one of those, I call them the step aerobic steps, but I think anybody who's listening knows what I'm talking about, where you can adjust the height of the thing.
Yeah.
I think that's
I
awesome.
feel like the branded one is called like the step,
Probably so.
and it goes with like my mom had one. She had the DVDs. You know?
Oh, I've still got over my, this would be my right shoulder, over my right shoulder. Can you see that back there
Yeah, that teal one.
in that corner? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
actually that. I picked it up from
Yeah, yeah.
in 2020. I picked it up from Goodwill or something like that when I was just
Oh, that
grabbing
makes
anything
sense.
I could to stock the home gym. Yeah, so I forgot that thing was back there. Yeah. All right. So anyways, yeah. So deload week. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. It actually it worked out really well because I was telling you before we were recorded, it's just been like kind of a hectic 3 weeks. And part of it is I've been doing a lot more social things than usual. And like
Yeah, your response to my email cracked me up. Yeah.
and that on top of working full time again, plus still doing everything else, like by the time I got to my strength workouts last week, I was like, this is literally the last thing I want to do. So then having it as a deload week made it a little easier because I was like, okay, well, I don't have to like go heavy. I just have to do a lot of reps. It felt a little more approachable because I was tired.
Yeah, from my observation, like you might be in like full YOLO mode right now, where you're just like, yeah, all the things, sure. Want to do that? Sure. It's like, dang. Yeah. It where it's like slightly wild to me too, is it's where you've gone from a time frame where my assumption is you had way more flexibility to do
Yeah.
different things when, for lack of a better way to put it, when you wanted to, because you basically quote unquote
yeah.
made your own schedule. Like you decide when you're going to make calls available. You decide if you're going to participate in group runs or run group runs, like that sort of a thing. And then now when there's a clearly defined, like I know during these particular hours, I have work. Now you're just like, yeah, I'm just going to stack more stuff on top of that because why not? It's so backwards to me. I'm like, all right, whatever works for you.
To be fair, a lot of these things were things I committed to before I got this new job. So
Okay.
we had a wedding this weekend. I'd already scheduled like the group runs. I had already scheduled a podcast recording.
Yeah. That's fair. I started listening to your latest one.
Oh, with
The
Aaron and Audrey?
3 people. Yeah. Just
Yeah.
I'm maybe 10 minutes in, maybe at that point. I put it on the YouTube. I'm trying to get your YouTube views up. Yeah. So
Someone has been watching some of ours.
I mean, I at least watch a few minutes of it. Very transparently, I watch a few minutes of it so that I can put a view on there. What? I'm trying to
Fair.
help us out.
I'm just saying, one of them has like 4 views. I don't know who those other 3 people are.
Hey, shout
not
out
me.
whoever you are. Yeah. All right. Maybe it's our crowd from the Netherlands. Remember when we were big in the Netherlands for a while?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe so. All right. Well, cool.
Yeah.
I appreciate you, folks.
Yeah. As a reminder, you can watch this on YouTube if you're not, or Spotify.
Yeah. So you can listen on Spotify, then watch it on YouTube, and then go back and listen to it on Apple Podcasts again. Because why not?
Yeah. Or you can watch and listen on Spotify and leave a comment and get
a rating and review. There you go. All right. Cool.
Okay. Anyway, that's not. Well, I have one last update that's really quick.
Yeah.
I'll try to keep it quick. I always say that, and it's not. So, we all know Birdie came from the outside, my cat. And she has a twin outside. They're not actually, like, related because they hate each other, but they look very similar.
Gotcha.
When Birdie was coming around, this one was also coming around, and I would get really confused because Birdie is very nice and approachable, so she would, like, come up to me. The other one is terrified of me. So if they came over at the same day, I'd be like, did your personality just switch midday? Like, what happened to you? Come to find out, it's 2 cats.
Oh, 2 different cats.
So,
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so then this other cat still comes around. I've been trying to befriend him, I assume it's a him, for a year now. And today, I finally pet him. It's a big moment.
This is a stray?
I'm not sure. He looks like well-groomed and well-kept.
Oh, so he just like comes over to your crib,
Oh, I feed
hangs
him,
out,
yeah.
and then goes back home.
I'm not sure. I don't know. He doesn't
That's
have a collar or
interesting.
anything. So it's hard to know because some of them are strays and some of them have homes, but we're in the suburbs, so some people let their cats roam, you know?
Oh, okay.
And then a lot
Gotcha.
of people, myself included, leave out food if we see cats that might be strays. So, yeah. But he's been coming around for a while. And now
Okay.
we are one
You
step
definitely
closer.
need another cat.
No, we're not taking him in. I just need to be friends.
It's sarcasm.
He needs to know
don't you worry.
that We are at our limit with cats in this household.
Yeah, you think.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
Lord.
that's all I got. What's up with you?
Yeah, well, the one update that I'll share, because I really want to dig into this particular topic. The one update I'll share is, let's see, we're recording this the first full week of October, right? Yeah, because we flipped
Yeah.
midweek last week. So first full
Today's the
week of
7th. Yeah.
October. So with my one-on-one clients, I do a group challenge group challenge slash focus area for the month. So I just want to talk a bit about that because I'm personally enjoying just having something that I can participate in with them if they choose to participate. I'm certainly not going to pretend like everybody, is like super gung ho and like all on it and whatnot. And still, to me, there's been enough anecdotal evidence and also there's research to back that the probability of staying consistent with something and sustaining something from like a good habit standpoint exponentially increases when you are part of a supportive community, when you have some accountability and different things like that. So it's just as much for them as it is for me. So last month, in the month of September, I picked the focus area to be on getting in walks. So the challenge was for as many days as possible, get in 30 minutes of walking. So it could be done all at once. It could be cumulative. The suggestion that I gave was if it's cumulative, mark out 3 times during the day that you're going to get outside for 10 minutes on purpose or that you're going to walk for 10 minutes on purpose. It was not required to be outside. So you can even walk inside, you could walk on a treadmill, you could walk around your house, whatever it was, just purposeful, that sort of a thing. So I participated in that particular one, and I'm actually going to pull up my tracker here real quick because that one that took some definite like intentional effort for sure to
Yeah.
get in the 30 minutes on the days because I also held myself responsible for not counting walking that was part of my day, like where I would normally be going. So even if it was something like, I parked further away at the grocery store, sort of a thing, I
Yeah.
didn't count that. It was like, okay, I'm being intentional about putting steps in, that sort of a thing. So out of the 30 days in September, I hit 30 minutes on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I didn't hit it on 5. So 25 out of 30 days, which I was pretty jazzed about.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's
So
good.
25 out of 30 days hit 30 minutes of walking. And then the new challenge that we've got. So September, that one was called Step-tember. This is where I'm like super proud of my creativity. So Step-tember. I did find out that is not an original term.
Yeah,
So
I'm
there
not
is,
surprised.
yeah. Well, I wasn't necessarily surprised. However, I was less proud of myself when I Googled Step-tember and saw that although it is a great cause, there's some sort of a cause, I think, charity
Oh,
organization that has like Step-tember, kind of like Movember, where like for men's mental health, you like shave your mustache or whatnot. Yeah. So, anyways, for October, it is Clock-tober. Yeah. Pretty
that could have two meanings. Could be like the clock app, aka TikTok.
it you know what? Fantastic point, and I'll keep that in mind for next year. Yeah. So this year for 2024, the Clocktober challenge is a Clocktober sleep challenge. So the challenge is you set a bedtime by 10 a.m. each day that you are going to meet that night, plus or minus 20 minutes. So basically, it's set a bedtime and stick to it for that particular day. So that's the current challenge that we've got going on. And so
Yeah.
far, 6 days in, it's October 7th now. So 6 days in, I have completed 4 out of the 6 days that I have set a bedtime and actually gotten in bed within plus or minus 20 minutes, or basically, let's say no more than 20 minutes after the set
Yeah.
time.
I was going to say most
Because if you
people
get in bed
probably
like
aren't.
3 hours before that, that counts. Although that'd be wild. Yeah.
That would be wild.
Yeah. So the purpose, there's multiple purposes. Is that the plural of purposes? Purpose.
Yes. I don't think
Purposes.
Popeye is.
No. Yeah. So one of the many reasons that I chose this particular focus is because when we're looking at getting in a good night of sleep, I'm a firm believer that that starts with being intentional about when you plan to go to bed that night.
Yeah.
So what it doesn't mean is that it's got to be the same time every night. Although, hey, that's not a problem if you can do something like that. With these focus times and these challenges, I really try to make them, to the best of my ability, as accessible and as achievable for my entire client base. And knowing that I've got a range of people who have a variety, Lord have mercy, like a variety of different things that could play a role. So if I were to say, for everybody, it's be in bed by 9 p.m., that would already remove, I can think of 4 people that would already potentially like just be a complete buzzkill
Yeah.
because they may have kids and or pets who decide like when the actual bedtime is. Realistically, you got folks that don't even get home until 10 o'clock at night based on the amount of activities that they have. So, for those that are listening to this particular episode and would like to challenge themselves, certainly, you can challenge yourself to participate in your own way where you're being intentional about setting a bedtime. Give yourself a time frame of by, no later than noon, let's say. By noon, I'm setting, an alarm that says go to bed, and it's going to be set for this particular time. So even if it's 11:30 at night, okay, cool. Like be intentional about it. And I'm interested to see what some of the takeaways are going to be, like the realizations. Whenever we do these, sometimes they'll share them in the group, and then sometimes they just message me like one off. And every time there's at least a couple additional on top of mine. There's at least a couple of realizations of like, man, this really kind of opened my eyes to these particular things that I was doing that was impacting this. And what's really cool, and I'll wrap this part up, but what's really cool is people being able to also not just expose gaps or bad habits, it's also to be able to validate and solidify that they've made changes to past behaviors that are now having a positive effect on things. Like that's a big part of it too. Because I've got some people that are just, for example, like in the walking challenge, one of my clients religiously walks her dog, like religiously every single day. So she's like, she's like, this is a gimme for me. It's going to be way too easy. So I challenged her with, okay, how can you keep that consistency going since according to you, you've got a built-in, like, I'm going to go walk my dog every day anyway. It's what I do. Like, what could you do to take that to the next level? So when you are walking your dog, we were talking about the phone. So are you typically scrolling on your phone? Could you create like a no screen challenge for yourself when you do go out on your walks? Could you challenge yourself to call a friend, call a family member? Like there's always something that you can do to
Yeah.
kind of spice things up a little bit, So yeah, so that's really my big update, kind of a new thing that I implemented a few months ago, and I'm gonna keep it going. So that's
Fun.
what I've got going on. So it is Clock-tober. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do
Clock-tober.
for November.
You
I
got
gotta
time.
figure that one out. Yeah, it's got to be. If anybody's got ideas, I'll at least entertain them. It's got to be something that rhymes with no. So there's show, grow, row,
I mean, it could
toe,
just be like say
toe, calf
no to
races.
something.
What's up?
You could
Say
just do
no
a
to
play
something.
on no.
Yeah, I could. My immediate reaction to that is no.
It's not creative
Get
enough.
it? Yeah. Did you get it? Say no.
Yeah, I got it.
Yeah. No, it's like that was one of my finer dad jokes. Uh, no, my immediate reaction to that is a no, primarily because I don't prefer to focus on restriction. So it's more like going towards something or going deeper with something, layering something in versus like stay like a like no sugar November sort of thing. Like, I'm not following that anyway. So
I mean, you
bump
could do
that.
no for. We can brainstorm
Yeah.
offline. And it
Anyways,
doesn't have to be something like sugar.
yeah, I'm just
Could be
putting it
something
out
like
there because
alcohol.
somebody's got an idea. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Okay.
Anywho. All right. Well, those are what we've got going on for updates. And then when we
Yeah.
do our next recording, I will have myself and Ava, or myself and Emily and Mace. That's my wife and my son. We will have been, Lord willing, we would have been down to Alabama for family weekend and gone to an Alabama football game and then come back. So I'll
Fun.
have that as part of my updates, going to our first football game as a family. So
Fun. Maybe you'll
yeah,
see my boss.
maybe. I'm just gonna walk around. Do you know Kelly? You know Kelly? Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. You want to get into today's topic?
Yeah. So this is definitely more in your arena, but
If you say
it
so.
you definitely know more about this than I do.
Eh.
So anyway, but
Okay.
like I was saying with the Deload week that I have, some of my athletes who have been using the app have noticed that compared to what they were doing before with strength training, there's more body weight exercises, and some of them are like, this is a little easy. Is it too easy? And it's been an adjustment for them, and especially with like buying into the app. But for those who haven't listened, the new app that I'm using, basically it takes your race date and then periodized. Whoa, what was that word?
Flash was 2. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
It does the periodization for you through your race date with your strength. So before, I was just creating a monthly 2 full body workouts for everyone, and then it was on them to execute. So a lot of them would end up just doing like similar rep ranges, similar weight, maybe increasing weight or reps, but not really like structuring in deload weeks and not like taking into account where in the training cycle for running are we, should we be removing volume, that kind of stuff. So the app does all of this, and it's quite a change if you're used to like lifting heavier weights every single week, and it can feel less productive than before. So that was kind of the impetus for this. And similar to my deload week where I was like, is this worth my time? And it was worth my time. But then JK thought we should talk about training to build muscle and strength.
That was smooth. Smooth transition. Yeah, it's one of my favorite things to nerd out about. It's building muscle
Yeah.
and strength. Yeah, I thought it was a cool topic to talk about. I mean, obviously we are called Lifting, Running, and Living, and we've talked about some different aspects of all things fitness, whether it comes to like mindset and social media and coaching and different things like that. I think it's been a bit since we've talked specifically about something more from just strictly the training, like just strictly the training aspect of things. So I thought this would be a good one to talk about. And I want to start off with, we're going to talk, or I'm going to talk and we'll have conversation around training to build muscle and strength. And I'm going to use probably interchangeably use terms like strength training, hypertrophy, muscle building, resistance training. And before doing that, I will 100% acknowledge for anybody who's like a really, really big stickler, which I at times can be, depending on how petty I feel that day. who's really a big stickler for, well,
Semantics.
hypertrophy is not the same as strength training. And
Hmm.
I acknowledge that. So I'm going to try my best to just put it under the heading of resistance training so as not to turn this into an optimal bro conversation. Because those really aren't like my favorite conversations to have anyway. I leave that to the people who are willing to dedicate like their life to that because they're helpful. It's definitely
Yeah.
helpful. It just does not, for the most part, it doesn't address the majority of the crowd that I serve, and I believe that you also serve for the most
Oh yeah.
part. So, what I will acknowledge is hypertrophy, which is the process of training to build muscle, is all about developing muscle. So, that is specifically what hypertrophy is. Strength training is specifically to build strength. So that would be more along the lines of you build strength to be able to move a particular amount of weight in whatever form or fashion you need to at some particular point in time. So I'm training for a 1 rep max back squat. Like I'm training for a
Hmm.
max back squat. I want to be able to squat 400 pounds.
Yeah.
So that is my training goal, as opposed to, and these two things can sometimes work hand in hand with a well designed program, as opposed to hypertrophy, where I am training to develop my quads, my glutes, my hamstrings, like that sort of a thing. So I'm just going to try and keep it easy and just it's overall resistance training is
Yeah.
what we're looking for. So what I wanted to first just bring up was actually let's talk like the 3 training principles for actually building muscle, and then we can get
Okay.
into like the volume conversation, which is kind of a little backwards based on what you just brought up because you talked volume first. But so 3 training principles that we've got for building muscle, and I am going to pull up notes from like a whole presentation that I did on this like a while ago, but I will not go through all 3 pages of notes that I used for this
3
presentation.
pages. Oh my
Yeah, I know.
gosh.
Did your nerd heart just like go aflutter? It's like, oh, 3. I had no charts or graphs though at all. It was all a
Missed
Zoom call where I
opportunity.
just, yeah, I know, totally. Okay, so 3 specific training principles for muscle growth, same as hypertrophy. So 3 things that overall, based on research, science-backed research, and anecdotal evidence, so both of those things, and I
Hmm.
believe all these 3 things to be true. Also, underlying proper sleep and nutrition is required. So proper sleep and nutrition is required. So just add water, yeah, is required for these things. So 3 principles for muscle group or muscle growth. So first you've got, in no particular order, you've got mechanical tension, then you've got metabolic stress, and then you have muscle damage. So to cover each of those areas, first, when you're talking mechanical tension, that is essentially you're lifting weights where you are creating tension in your muscles. So to do that, you are typically lifting somewhere around 1 to 3 reps away from failure. So around 1 to 3 reps away from failure. So what you are doing is you are chasing what's called mechanical tension. So if you think about your muscles, you are essentially applying tension to your muscles by, I'm going to use like a bicep curl as an example. You're
Hmm.
you're applying tension to that muscle, not just by like sitting there and holding it. You are applying tension to that muscle by moving it in a concentric and an eccentric motion. So basically by picking things up and then slowly lowering them down is probably the best way that I can describe it as of
Yeah.
right now without standing up and doing a whole presentation. So mechanical tension would be pathway number 1, let's call it.
Hmm.
So principle number 1, mechanical tension. So you are applying tension to the muscle by lifting it up, bringing it back down. So not lifting it up and slamming it back down, but lifting it up, bringing it back down, concentric, eccentric. Second pathway or second strategy or principle is what's called metabolic stress. So when you're looking at something like metabolic stress, that's a bit different. That I describe that as kind of like feeling like feeling the pump, because basically what you're
Mm.
doing is you are working to build enough stress in that particular muscle group where nutrients, so this is where proper nutrition really, really, really comes into play, because you then, when you've created stress in that particular area, metabolic stress in that area, and we'll talk about different training techniques to do that, just very basically, you then shuttle the nutrients towards that particular area. So if you hear people talk about like metabolites, the metabolite cycle and different things like that, that's essentially what you're focused on when it comes to working on metabolic stress. It's basically like sending what's the best way to phrase this?
I'm not sure.
Sending support. So sending
Oh, okay.
nutritional support towards that particular area. So it can see that there's stress. We need to provide additional support to that area. So when you are seeing people do like the BFR bands, like blood flow restriction,
Oh, yeah.
that sort of a thing, that can definitely fall under the heading of focusing on metabolic stress. That's where, again, you're really like feeling, it's usually higher rep range, like
Can
generally,
confirm.
let's say 12 to 25, like you're Bulgarians. So
No,
12
more
to
like the half
25.
squats, but yeah.
Yeah. This is a general guideline, by the way. This is not
Yeah.
like, okay, well, 11 reps doesn't count and 26 reps doesn't count. So just generally 12 to 25. And you are still working primarily towards like achieving pretty close to muscular failure when you're looking at metabolic stress. So again, first we've got mechanical tension, where you're essentially stressing that particular muscle group by a concentric and an eccentric movement. Then you're looking at metabolic stress, where you are stressing that particular area and it shuttles the nutrients then to that particular area. And then the last one, excuse me, last principle is muscle damage. So this is the one that if folks were really into, like when bro science really took off, I'd say in the early 2000s, early to mid, yeah, let's say early to mid 2000s when bro science really took off. If
Okay.
you've ever heard the explanation of, hey, the way that muscle grows is that you lift weights and you create
And
these
micro
tiny
tears.
tears. Yes, the
Yeah.
micro tears, or sometimes they're even called like micro trauma triggers. Like
Yeah.
you create the little tiny tears in the muscle fibers, and then the body, through protein synthesis and the recovery process, then fills in those very tiny tears and builds new muscle. That's how muscle grows. If you've ever heard that explanation before, that is essentially talking about muscle damage.
Yeah.
So that's basically what that is. I tend to try, if at all possible, if I'm really having a conversation with a client about this, I tell them like, hey, here's what we're not going to do. We're not going to take your workout and be like, okay, this is the muscle damage part, and this is
Mm.
the mechanical tension part, and this is the metabolic stress part. Partly because one, they don't necessarily like, they're not necessarily like super engaged in that the
Yeah.
conversation, and two, because when it comes to muscle damage and mechanical tension, it can be really difficult to identify which one of those things is really happening. Because when we talk about muscle damage, when we're talking about creating these tiny tears, it's not something that you should be able to actually tell. Because when we
Yeah.
talk like microscopic, like they are teeny, 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 tiny, and they're in the muscle fibers. It's not like you're going to see that on the
Yeah.
outside of your skin. You don't know that. So basically, between muscle damage and mechanical tension, those two particular things can work very much hand in hand for the most part. The
Yeah.
rep range tends to be around the same. Like in the 8 to 12 is usually, I'd say 8 to 12 or 6 to 12 is kind of like the rep range that I typically like to stay in for that particular stimulus to occur. And then with metabolic stress, that typically is, again, it's more like the pump type techniques like blood flow restriction. That's probably one of the easiest ones to use as an example. So that's a pretty big one. And typically that would be something where it's like your pump work at the end of a training session. Most of the resources that I've accessed when we're talking about something like metabolic stress, it's not something that's from start to finish of a
Yeah.
workout. It certainly can be something where you may go through a what's called like a metabolite cycle, where you maybe are inserting more of trying to get to that stimulus through like a 2 to 3 week, maybe 4 week training phase at the most. But that's usually something that's like different than a very specific like strength and hypertrophy cycle, or I shouldn't say hypertrophy, a very specific like strength cycle.
Yeah.
It usually, like a lot of times compared to strength training, a strength cycle, it feels like cardio compared to a strength cycle because it's so high rep. So that's
Yeah.
where you're getting again like
It's
15,
awful.
20, 25, 30 reps. Just
30.
crazy. Yeah. Yeah,
No.
that's crazy talk. Yeah.
That is crazy talk. You
Yeah.
could be there all day.
So overall, after all of that nerding out, and I definitely just word vomited, so hopefully we do still have some people listening. Those are the three principles. I don't know what we're going to call this, like the three pathways,
Yeah.
three training strategies to use when you are looking to maximize hypertrophy, muscle development. And you can for sure still get stronger in the process. It's just different than training to get to a specific strength number.
Yeah.
It's a different process. So, yeah. All right. What,
No
any
notes.
thoughts that you may have after I just dumped all that? No, nothing.
I'm just realizing that if you had asked me to describe any of these, I wouldn't have been able to. That's not true. I could tell you about the micro tears.
I was gonna say that. I don't know if that's totally true.
I think
Yeah,
it's just
well-
like when I create strength workouts. Well, one,
Yeah.
obviously it's not my primary thing.
Yeah.
I like know how to put things together, but I don't know as in depth why. You know?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
that totally makes sense. I think well, one, that's why that's further clarification of like why we're into what we're into individually, and it all still
Yeah.
works under the overall heading, right? So where it becomes helpful for me, and again, I've said this before and I'll reiterate it again, rarely am I getting into this level of detail, and this isn't even considered like super high level scientific. I'm not using a whole lot of scientific terms here. Rarely will I get into that level of detail with a client without them specifically requesting it. So what I will do though is I will bring up these specific topics, or not topics. I will bring up these strategies to help explain generally, hey, here's why we're going to try this approach for a while. Like I have a particular client right now who, for the most part, we have stayed within like the 6 to 10, 6 to 12 rep range with the majority of her training for a pretty significant period of time. So, side note, she and I are actually, I looked at her True Coach the other day. We're about to hit 2,000 workouts together, which is
2,000?
crazy. Yeah, she's been
Dang.
my client for 7 years now.
Whoa.
Yeah. So,
That's so long.
shout out to her if she's listening. She knows who she is. So anyways, for a good amount of time with her training blocks, because I program typically 12-week training blocks for her. So
Yeah.
we just swap things at the 6-week mark. Most of her stuff is 6 to 10, maybe 6 to 12 reps for the most part. And so we're going through a pretty short metabolic stress cycle where we still have some movements that are in the lower rep range. And then we've got like 3 to 4 movements where we're really going for like the pump.
Yeah.
And that's going to be for about 3 to 4 weeks. And that'll be it. We'll get back to like the same thing. So in an instance like that, I'm bringing it up as the why, like some information, just kind of hitting the surface of, hey, there are different ways to to work towards hypertrophy. And we primarily spend the majority of our time in the muscle damage and mechanical tension area. Here's what I want to do differently. And, she's down for whatever most of the
Yeah.
time. So I do make sure that people are aware, hey, if we are going to be going in this particular time, I want to get an understanding of what their nutrition looks like too, because there are certain cycles and certain training techniques that are not necessarily maximized very well if you've got somebody who's specifically in like a really deep deficit and purposely underfed. So it doesn't mean you can't do that. It doesn't mean you can't do it by any means. It's just, are you putting yourself in the best position to do that? It would be like my controversial, like somebody's training for their first ultra. And also you decided like, hey, let's get you trained up for an ultra at the same time that they're like, I am going to try and compete in a bodybuilding competition also. So I'm going to be going through prep for the next 18 weeks and trying to cut weight. Like, well, that'll be interesting.
That would suck.
To the crazy people that are out there, am I saying that you can't do both at once? No, that is not what I'm saying.
Most people can't, though.
Yeah, most people that I'm aware of shouldn't. Let me just put it that way. I'm not saying they can't. That's the thing. People can. That was kind of my whole thing with the backlash or whatever you want to call it on Threads. With the people who are like, "You're telling me I can't? Do you know I?" Like, I'm not saying you can't. Say why? Why though?
Men, they get so angry when you tell them what to do.
The dudes do get angry.
Yeah, I know. That's
I'm telling you, menopause is a thing. It is absolutely a thing. Well, I mean, is there anything else you think we need to go over in that particular spot? We can talk volume.
Maybe we could mention, like, people talk about time under tension a lot, which goes along with the mechanical tension, and that's kind of why I feel like it had a moment for a bit where everyone was talking about time under tension.
Oh my gosh, you're
on
so
social
right.
media.
Yeah, it did. I think 2015-ish. I just remember that just because that was when I really started to pay a bit more attention to, started paying more attention to programming things with particular techniques. Mm-hmm. And Christian Thibodeau, who's a really well-respected coach, is somebody that I followed, and he used a lot of time under tension and isometric holds and things like that. So I think you're right. Time under tension did definitely have its moment. Where I hear about it talked more now than I have before is really in terms of identifying the ability to increase time under tension as a form of achieving progressive overload. So, for example, somebody is doing dumbbell bench presses, let's say, and they go from 2-second eccentrics and they don't have additional weight. This comes into play a lot with people who are like, hey, I have dumbbells that go up to 50 and then that's where I'm maxed. What else can I do until I can get some additional weight? And that's one of the things we'll do is increase the time under tension. And they're like, well, what's that going to do? And it's like, well, you may find that, lowering a pair of dumbbells with a 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi count down and then pressing back up, okay, maybe you could do that for 10 reps. If I told you that it needed to be 4 seconds, though, you're like, oh, okay. I can't squeeze out more than 7 or 8. Okay. Yeah. So we have now by increasing the time under tension, we've actually worked closer to failure with less reps. Mm-hmm. So we're still able to achieve that progressive overload stimulus that we're looking for. So progressive overload is not always being able to do more weight or more reps. It also can be better control of the movement through time under tension. Because in theory, or not in theory, like that time under tension, more time under tension then is moving you closer to failure. Mm-hmm. And it's something that you weren't able to do before.
Yeah.
So, I think you're totally right that time under tension did have a moment. It was a vibe for quite a while.
Yeah. I mean, it is a good reminder. A lot of people do move too fast.
Yes.
When they're lifting.
Tempo. Yeah, being able to see lifting form check videos and checking those for my clients sometimes. And just reminding them like, hey, if we're looking at 201 tempo, like I really want you to look at this for a second, like a squat, for example, because some of them
Yeah.
like drop it like it's hot. And it's like, whoa, sister, like slow down for just a second. Like, we're going 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, like 2 seconds on average that's about on average what you're looking at. About
Yeah.
2 seconds on average on the lowering portion. So yeah, that's a very good call out too,
Yeah.
for real.
Yeah, we can move on to volume.
Yeah, so volume, when it comes to resistance training and specific to hypertrophy, generally accepted range, and I put a huge emphasis on generally, somewhere in the 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week. So 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week. I was on a podcast, it's probably been over a year now, and I had come fresh off of some newer to me research that was showing that you could achieve the result that you were looking for in as little as 5 to 10. And I remember like on the podcast, I was like, at the end of the day, you really just need like somewhere between like 5 to 10 or whatnot. And then as I started to dig into it more, I was like, I'm going to be straight up. I wish that I had never put that out into the universe, because it takes, like, you've got to be working like hella hard to have 5. I was really like at that point, I remember like mentally, I was just at this point where I was just constantly like trying to tell people like, you're doing so much and you're not doing it with quality. So we need to bring this down. So I think I
Yeah.
aired too short, but so yeah. So 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week.
And
So
how
does
do you
go
define
ahead.
muscle group? Is it like the hamstrings are the 4 muscles that make up? It's 4, right? For the hamstring.
Well, we're really looking, no, so we're really looking, that's a really good question. So I would
Yeah.
define that as looking at your main muscle groups. So back, chest,
Okay.
legs, glutes, or quads, glutes, let's call it back, chest, quads, glutes, shoulders. Like I would use your major muscle groups.
Yeah.
And then also there's understanding the difference between, and there's a specific term for it that's completely flying out of my head right now. There's direct targeting of the muscle group, and then there's the indirect work. So
Yeah, yeah.
let's use something like a pronated grip, overhand grip, barbell row.
Yeah.
So a bent over barbell row, if somebody who's listening can picture it, you're bending over, you grab the barbell, your hands are in an overhand position, and you row that towards your torso. So that's a barbell row. Overall, like generally, it is a back exercise. So that's a
Yeah.
movement designed to develop your back. At the same time, though, you are also indirectly, because you are bending at the elbow, you are also going to be working your biceps. So when it comes to people being like, well, I had a client who reached out to me because she said she wanted more bicep and tricep work in. And so, like I usually do, I was like, okay, we could definitely take a look at that. Before doing that, when you look at the layout of your training, how many sets per, like, where do you see that we're working your biceps? And this, sometimes I don't know, like, how my clients put up with me sometimes because like, there's no right or wrong. I just want to see what you see. Like, what do you
Yeah.
see? Like, that sort of thing. And fortunately, I am blessed with like across the board clients who are like just willing to go on this ride with me.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, how many, or not how many? I said, where do you see that we're working biceps? And so we had two days where there were 3 working sets that were like bicep curls. So one was like a standing, double arm bicep curl, and the other one was like a single arm facing away bicep curl.
Okay.
So, she was like, okay, well, I see 3 sets on this day, 3 sets on this day. So that's 6 sets. So I was like, okay, cool. So those are 6 sets where we're directly targeting. Now, take a look again. If I then tell you, and I walked her through like the barbell row example, like if I
Yeah.
walk you through that example, where else do you see the biceps are being worked? And she had a barbell row, a pull down, and I think like a standing single arm row. And she's like, oh, actually, oh, snap. She's like, we've actually got a decent amount of bicep work in there. I'm like, yeah, I'm not saying that that's necessarily enough. Like maybe that's a muscle group where we want to go closer to like 15 to 20 sets per week. That's all good. We'll just also understand that there are areas where we are working the biceps. What was super cool to me is that she reported back after getting that information about, or that reminder, let's say, or new information, maybe it was to her, that something like a single arm row works your back and it's also working my biceps. She's like, my form, I'm going to be honest, she's like, my form kind of changed a little bit. Like I was really
Oh.
purposeful and I felt like I was, the way she reported, like tensing my bicep up a bit more. And I was like, oh, okay. And she's like, now I'm kind of regretting that I asked you to put in more bicep work because now she's like, I didn't even need that much more. She's like, it just kind of unlocked some additional information. I was like, well, that's cool. That's
Yeah.
super cool. So yeah, 10 to 20 sets per muscle group per week is generally sufficient. If you're a beginner or somebody who's not necessarily a beginner to training at all, not new to training at all, you may be somebody who's just newer to strength training or newer to resistance training. Maybe you've primarily done cardio based things, that sort of a thing. You could probably get away with more in like the 10 to 12, 10 to 15 range.
Yeah.
For folks who tend to be more advanced, who are doing this for a while, I became really stuffed up now.
It's okay. I'm sitting in darkness. So.
For folks who are a bit more advanced, you likely will need to skew higher, like in the 15 to 20 range.
Yeah.
I feel like I've just word vomited about training for the last like half hour.
I mean, that's what this topic was going to be. So it's like when I talk about anything running, training related.
Yeah, that's fair. Thank you
Yeah.
for indulging me. Do you so where do you estimate that things fall with the training that you're doing right now? Or I guess not to even like pin it down like that. How are you assessing that it is or isn't enough? Or how do you respond to that with your athletes that right now are kind of like, this doesn't seem like enough, like that sort of thing?
Well, for at least one of them, we found out it's because she was too conservative in setting up her profile. So it was treating her like a beginner, but she's actually been lifting for quite some time. So it was giving her all body weight because
That's
in the app,
interesting.
yeah, because I was like, this doesn't make. Once she said that she had all body weight exercises, I was like, that makes no sense to me. Because like I've been working with her for most of this year, and she's been lifting most of this year.
Yeah.
And she had experience before, like she wasn't starting as a beginner. And I was like, just out of curiosity, like what does it say your fitness level is? And she was like, beginner. And I was like, that's probably why that you're getting treated like a beginner. So it's not like throwing you into weights before you know form and how to move and stuff. So I was like, try changing like your inputs and see if that helps. So that was one. And then another one is kind of hard because she just hurt her Achilles. So then it's like hard to assess because she can't do everything either. Because there's like, because this app is, for us, it's geared towards running. There's a lot of plyometrics, which is really exciting because it, I think, integrates it in a smarter way than I would. Just because like we haven't dived.
Delved.
delved. We haven't delved
Just made
into
that up.
plyometrics. Whatever. We haven't gone into plyometrics too much, but like they tend to be riskier than other forms of
Yeah.
resistance
I agree with
training,
that.
something like that. So like for me, putting it in not a custom plan always made me nervous because I didn't want someone to overdo plyometrics and end up injuring themselves.
Yeah.
Because easier to do than like go deadlift. You know, not saying you can't hurt yourself deadlifting, obviously, but
Yeah.
it's easy to overdo jumping around, especially with running, and if you're not used to it. So, where was I going with this?
We were talking
I don't
about
how to
helping a
assess if
client.
it's enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that was that was a great, I do want to like definitely say that's awesome that you didn't immediately just jump into, okay, well, let's adjust this, let's adjust that. First
Well, I
starting
can
with,
adjust now.
what's
I
that?
have no control over the app, so I think the other piece is like I really trust Chris who built
Yeah.
the programming, and I had to remind some of them like one of them is doing the same 5K as me, which is on October 27th. So I was like, you're going to have less going
Yeah.
into a race, and that's what we
Makes sense.
want. So you have more energy for running and like recovering. And the other one, she was having a race in like 10 weeks. So like still in the app's mind, I think that's close enough to be like considered competition mode, which
Yeah.
you end up doing either like higher weights, lower reps, and decrease volume load in some way, shape, or form.
Right.
So it's like not going to look like it, like you're probably not doing the volume we were just talking about, getting that
Right.
close to a race, because like in running, you're getting towards your peak weeks, you're doing your highest volume with running, so you have less to dedicate to your strength training. So like just trying to explain that like we are now in a world where the strength is going along with your running. So it's supposed to ebb and flow a little more than just be the same every week.
Yeah. That absolutely makes sense. That totally
Yeah.
makes sense. Yeah. I
So
think,
yeah.
yeah, I understand what you were saying earlier about, well, I don't have the autonomy to adjust it. And also, still, I'm going to recognize, at least I'll recognize it, that you took the time to first go back and get an understanding for what data was entered to begin with,
Yeah.
as opposed to immediately jumping to, well, it's because of this race or whatever it may be. It's like, okay, well, first, like, how did you set it up? Kind of similar to how we've talked about AI before, like garbage in,
Yeah.
garbage out. And I'm not calling like the data she put in garbage, but I'm just saying like something can only be as effective as the information that it currently has to work with at that particular time. So I think that's a helpful little snippet that hopefully folks don't overlook when it comes to thinking about like automated sort of things too.
Yeah.
Like that's where I still think that one of the many reasons that the value of a coach, and I know that I'm biased, the value of a coach is highlighted
Yeah.
because it's taking the time to go through those particular things. And that's an especially sensitive is not the word. It's an especially pertinent point to make when it comes to nutrition and doing things through like app-based nutrition.
Yeah.
I'm certainly not somebody who's going to say that app-based nutrition cannot work. It just, there's a lot more responsibility on the user to understand what they're putting in. And that can be kind of wild.
Yeah.
So, yeah. All right. Well, anything else on the training to build muscle and strength topic?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, I hope people found that somewhat useful.
I think people will, 'cause
Yeah.
feel
Okay.
like, I don't know, we haven't gone into things like this for lifting as much, I feel like.
Yeah, I don't think we have, and somewhat transparently, in the past, I've shied away from going. Even again, I know that wasn't super in depth, but sometimes I'm like, man, I don't know if I really want to get into all this because I still firmly believe that a good amount of people who are lifestyle clients doesn't mean that you don't compete. It's just that your world doesn't revolve around competing. I still believe that a good portion of the lifestyle clients that I've interacted with, observed, and just generally know when they are getting frustrated about certain things and then trying to make tweaks and things like that, they typically are overthinking and bringing a whole bunch of stuff into the conversation where it's like, okay, but can you set a bedtime? Can we start there?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like, yeah, but I don't really want to focus on that. It's like, oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Like we got to, James Clear says it in Atomic Habits. You have to standardize before you can optimize. So
Yeah.
as much as I love digging into and nerding out about the principles of muscle building and whatnot, it's also like all of these things are helpful to know, and it's cool to be able to take a look at your program and be like, oh, okay, this makes sense. I see where this is applied now. And also, cool, can you eat some vegetables while you're looking at your program that deeply? You know, like, oh, I noticed that I'm doing 21 sets instead of 20 sets this week. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay. All right. So, yeah. All right. Anything else before we wrap up this After Dark edition?
Literally after dark.
After Dark, yeah. Yeah, you are
I forgot to
legit
turn
in
my
the
light
dark.
on.
Yeah,
It's right in front of me, but
it's all good.
No, I don't think so.
Okay. Tell them where to find us.
Yeah. If you would like to, we're on Instagram at Lifting Running Living Pod. We would love it if you would tag us as you're listening. Tell us what you like about our episodes. You can also email us at liftingrunninglyvingpod@gmail.com. And you can find us on Spotify, Apple, YouTube. I don't know other platforms, but give us a rating and review wherever you can.
All
And nice
right.
comments only, please.
Yeah, just nice comments. Sure about that? It's engagement gets the people going. All right, and with that, we are going
Have
to
the
call it an
bandwidth to
episode.
read
It's all
negative
good.
comments.
Yeah. Yeah, you don't want to use your opens for all that. All right. So with
Exactly.
that, as Kelly said, thank you so much for listening to Lifting, Running, and Living. We certainly appreciate it. Take care. We'll talk to you next week or the week
Goodbye.
after.
Yeah, 2 weeks.
All right. Peace out, folks.